Yes,
So,
Ravani, here.
yeah. So today we'll talk about Jenkins. So Jenkins is one of the very uh, the important tool we have in DevOps. As you can see, if you remember, I have shown you the DevOps tree. In the DevOps tree, this is where Jenkins comes into picture. The CI/CD tool. Jenkins is a CI/CD tool, continuous integration, continuous deployment tool. And like Jenkins, we have a couple of other tools also there, very popular tools. Bamboo, TeamCity, and these three are CI/CD tools. So what exactly is CI/CD? So let me get started with so Jenkins. If you go to jenkins.ci.r, so we have two products are there in the Jenkins. So one is open source product, another one is commercial based. So what you see here is open source, so free to use, no charges. But there is a commercial product which you have CloudBees, okay, CloudBees Jenkins, which you have to pay for it, for a support. It's a server per server based and per year based licensing that you have to pay. So they will also give you support, in case of run into any issues, they will provide you the support. But the jenkins.io, which is open source, no need to pay anything. So what is exactly, Jenkins, and there is very good documentation is available on this site. So also there are some use cases available. So please refer to this after we finish the Jenkins topic. So basically it is a CI/CD tool. So continuous integration and continuous deployment. Where exactly this CI/CD tool comes into place? So if you see this, this is under DevOps or SDLC lifecycle. Okay, so if you see the developers checking their code, so developers checking their code from where they checking their code from the source code management, right? They have Git or GitHub. They check out their code and then comes for testing. The unit testing are different kind of testings that they come into, and also the after testing they use the build tools such as Ant or Maven or Gradle to build the source code into output like jar file or WAR file or MSI or exe file. Okay, so depending on kind of application that you are using, so it can be the output can be different. And you see this the CI tool, the continuous. This is Jenkins continuous integration. Basically, the continuous integration tool is going to do the most of the tasks that are mentioned here. Checking out the code, unit testing, quality testing, deploy to test environment, deploy to production, integration testing, deploy to pre-prod, user acceptance testing. So all these are done by, the most of the work is done by Jenkins. So Jenkins has it's as I said, it's a CI/CD tool. It's a continuous integration, so it can integrate a lot of these. For unit testing, you use JUnit. Okay, for deploying the code into production or environment, we use some plugins. So Jenkins plugins that we call it up, and for building your applications, we use Maven. So all these tools can be integrated with Jenkins. That's why we call it as integration and deployment or development tool. So this is basically different tools are these tools like Git, Maven, SonarQube, JUnit, okay, Chef and Puppet. All these can be put into Jenkins. So let me quickly show you how does this Jenkins looks like. So this is my IP address. By default, Jenkins runs on 8080. Okay, this is the port 8080. Default port is 8080. This is the Jenkins front end, Jenkins view. You can create jobs. So jobs can be anything from picking up the source code from the Git source code management, uh, doing testing, unit testing or any other testing, and creating the output file and putting into the production environment or development environment or testing environment. So we create jobs for this. Okay. If you look at this, these are actually different job steps that are there. So one is about the job, about that particular project. Source code management, it is going to pull the code from Git or GitHub or Subversion, and the build will be initiated with build triggers and the build environment. So if you want to pass on some parameters to the build environment, you can pass on. And finally the build will take place, like, if you want to execute some build steps, like you want to do a testing, you want to invoke a scripts, particular kind of scripts, like then these are build steps. And post build actions, these are post build actions. So like, you want to get notifications, or you want to deploy this application into a different environment. So these are okay. So okay, so this is the view. So we are going to work mostly with in this area for Jenkins, and all the things, there are nearly about 700 plugins are there. So that means I can integrate with any of the uh, applications or software that I wanted. So if you want to integrate with Selenium, so there is a plugin for that. If you want to integrate with JUnit, or if you want to integrate with any software that you are aware of it, right? So uh, there is a plugin. Everything there is a plugin. 0.9. So if you go to Jenkins, you have manage plugins. Okay, suppose right now there are a lot of plugins are installed: Bitbucket and Build, okay, Delivery Pipeline, Dockers, and if you want any plugin that you wanted, so you can search for those plugins, and that particular functionality can be integrated with Jenkins. That is why it is called continuous integration tool. So you have it is very much customizable. So it is very much, you can integrate with several different tools. So for example, if you know any application, so I just want to integrate with some email notifications. So you see, you type email, you have these many uh, email components or email plugins that you have. Suppose I want to integrate with LDAP authentication. So this is LDAP. Any test cases, yeah. Okay, these are some different test tools or test plugins that we have. Okay, so I mean, it's if you're a DevOps guy, Jenkins is must. It's you must know Jenkins. So if you know Jenkins, it means you understood at least 60-70% of the overall DevOps logic. Okay, so because this is going to play the major role in the DevOps entire SDLC cycle. Okay. So let's look at what exactly is Jenkins all about. So Jenkins is a software that is helps you continuous integration. So Jenkins usually installed where the central build takes place. Okay, if you what are the build tools that we have? The very popular tools: Apache Ant, Apache Maven, and you have Gradle. MS Build is there, Microsoft Build for Microsoft applications. So we this is usually installed on the build server where the build is taking place. Usually this is the process. Developer check in. This is the workflow of Jenkins. Developers check in their code. Okay, where do they store their code? Either in Git or GitHub or Bitbucket, or there are some centralized source repository will be there. From there, developers will pull or push the code, pull the code. Okay, and because why do we need to have a centralized repository? Because so that multiple users can access the code simultaneously, multiple users can develop the code or work on the projects. Otherwise, if only one person is able to, I mean, you are from testing background, you know very well, you know. Yeah. Yes. It's not a centralized repository. This is the decentralized repository is very popular. It is GitHub. Git and GitHub is decentralized form. Bitbucket, GitLab. So if you see this centralized, it's no longer used nowadays because some limitations are there. So if you see this version control, so Git, there are two types of version controls. I mean, within the distributed or decentralized version control, either a public or private. Private is used within your organization. Public is, GitHub is very famous public. Yeah. So you can find some source code there. So public source code. But for companies, they use either GitLab or Bitbucket. These are very popular repository services. So it's all decentralized. So what happens, the user will get a copy. So when the user wants to check out the code, so he will clone the repository to his local machine, and he will start working on the local machine, local source code. Okay, when he is ready for committing the changes, first he will commit the changes to the local repository, and then he will push the changes to the remote repository. So this is how it happens. Okay, you see this is your main repository. This is, we call it as a central server, but not a CVS, not a centralized version control, but it's a central server, one server where all your repository sitting. So developers will pull the source code. They clone the first time they clone the source code, and they start working on it. Once they clone the source code, it creates a local repository. Okay, they will work on the local repository, and then once they are ready for changes, they push the changes to the main server so that other developers can pull the changes. Okay, whatever the changes done by the other developer can be pulled by using Yes, so you can set up that kind of configuration. So whenever there is a change happening in your environment, so you can get a email alert or you can get a notifications. Okay, so so Git is very popular, and like Git, you have uh, other source code like GitLab, Bitbucket. Okay, private repositories. So they use this GitHub or Git or Bitbucket to uh, store their source code, and Jenkins will pick up the changed source code and trigger a build and run any test if required. So this all process, the three boxes that we have here, right? This is a automated steps. So we just create a job, one-time effort. Job is created in Jenkins, and as soon as the developers make any changes to the repository, Jenkins will pick up the code. Jenkins will continuously trigger the source code management (SCM), continuously poll the SCM, and will pick up the source code from the uh, uh, source code management, and it will initiate the build. Okay, and also any test like performance testing, load testing that needs to be done, it will do the testing. Again, for that you have plugins. Okay, all Selenium plugins are there, JUnit plugins are there. Yes, it will continuously monitor your source code. Yes. So let me show you that. So, and finally, what happens when your source code, right? Finally, what is the outcome of your source code? It is your application. Yeah. It is your application. Can be anything, a web app, or it can be a jar file or a var file, or can be exe, can be MSI. Okay, so it can be a web app. The We call those outputs as artifacts. Okay, those artifacts will be available to your environment wherever you want to put those artifacts. Artifact is nothing but output. Will be put into the first. We will start with development environment, and then we do the testings and move into QA. Okay, and then from QA, and again we do some testings and move it to pre-prod. From pre-prod, again we move it to production. So who is moving all this code? The output code, artifacts, who is moving it? It's Jenkins who's doing that. Okay, Jenkins is actually uh, initiating the tests, and also it is deploying the code into your different environments, and also output the artifacts also generated using Jenkins. So we have some tools like SonarQube, okay, PMD, so the RT Nexus Artifactory, so Nexus SonarQube that we have, and also Artifactory is there. So this will help you to generate output. Yeah. So if you see this Jenkins, how will Jenkins pick up the changed source code? So if you again go back to the screen that I have here, if you look at this job, or I will go to another job where Git is configured. So this is the repository. This is my repository, github.com. Okay, what do I have here? I have my code is here. If you go to this repository, this is my Java code. Okay, so there is a web content here, and JSP files and XML files and all those things. And we have Jenkins is going to pull the source code into the workspace. For every job, there is a workspace created. Okay, this is Ant build. There is a workspace created for that job, and in that workspace, it is going to pull the source code, and it is going to initiate a build using Ant. Ant is the tool which initiates the build. Jenkins is not a build tool. It is an integration tool. So we have to add the functionality, build functionality, test functionality, deployment functionality, all that functionality we have to add. So we have added the AND functionality so that the build can happen. So build is happening here with the AND, and any post build actions that you want to take, you can take. So how does Jenkins know whether the source code has changed or not? So here poll SCM is there. So poll SCM means it's continuously checking your this repository. How does it check? If I specify star star, okay, it means uh, you want every minute that you want to check your repository. Yes, in that case, if you want every minute, then you have it. And this is going to continuously check. Or if you want some build periodically at certain intervals, okay, maybe right now it's my local time 8:27, so I want this to happen at 30. 8 is 20 hours, and it will show you help here what the 5 parameters that you specify: minute, hour, date of month, and date of week. Date of day of month, today is 15. Okay, and month is 5. Day of week, today is Tuesday, which is 2. So 8:30 p.m. it's going to uh, initiate the build. Okay, again you have to specify the time zone. If you don't specify the time zone, it's going to take UTC. You have to specify time zone equal to Calcutta, my local. Okay, so Asia Pacific or Asia. Okay, Calcutta. Yeah. So time zone equals to this. So it's going to use this time zone and it's going to initiate at 8:30 and save your job. It will be triggered at that particular time. Okay. Or you want every minute to be checked in, then you just specify. Here also you can specify star 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 star. Okay, like 5 stars you specify. The build will it's whenever you make any changes here, right? So if I just add a file here, automatically it looks at it continuously and it initiates a build job. So that's the whole about Jenkins. Okay, so Jenkins was called prior. Now it is called Jenkins. The latest version is 2.10. Uh, Earlier it was called Hudson. So originally it was developed by Sun Microsystem. Okay, and it was the parent name for Jenkins. But later Oracle bought Sun Microsystem and they changed it to Jenkins. So it's very popular continuous integration tools. Okay, so what exactly is a continuous integration? So it is a practice so that requires developers to integrate the code into shared repository at regular intervals, right? So they will continuously making changes to the source code and they will make it available to the repository so that other users can pick it up. So why they are doing that? So why they are doing so? Can't I make the changes? I develop my code on my local machine. I will update it to the central server 1 month later. Is that a good practice? No, because even you never know. See, it's not you're not the only one who is working on that project. See, there are multiple people working on that. So if you push your source code into repository 1 month later, you will find lot of errors. You may find a lot of errors because your code has to be integrated with others' code, and if you're not integrating at regular intervals, you will find a lot of problems. So it's better to integrate at the as soon as uh, any changes, major changes are done. So it's better to integrate with a repository so that you remove problems in a later time. Okay. So and continuous integration requires developer to have frequent builds. Okay. What is exactly build means? Build is nothing but basically piece of code that we wanted to see, piece of application that we wanted to see. Okay, so we give some inputs and we get output the way we expected. So that's nothing but a build. So whenever the best practice is, whenever there is a code commit occurs, build should take place. Earlier days, before Jenkins, before these build tools, we had to do the build jobs manually. Okay, so there are tools like Make. Make is one of the tools that we use. We used to have. So you take all the source code and you do a make install, make deploy. A lot of manual steps are there to build your source code. Okay, but with this ant tool and the latest build tools that we have, so the build can happen automatically. But even more automatically, that can happen using continuous integration, so which is Jenkins. How do I install this Jenkins? So you need to have JDK. Why JDK? Because it's on microsystem. Okay, so uh, so JDK unit minimum 1.5 and memory 2 GB and disk space. It depends on the project, the size of the project, because every job is going to get created as workspace on your Jenkins machine. There is no minimum requirement. The size of your project decides the size of disk space. And Jenkins can run on Ubuntu or Windows or Mac OS, any operating system. Alright. You can, there is a generalized Jenkins. Okay. There is a WAR file. Okay. that you can take that WAR file and you can just put it in any operating system. Suppose you have an operating system which does not fall any of this category. So you simply take a WAR file that is there, that is generalized version of Jenkins. It's not specific to any environment. As long as you have Java installed, take that jar file and start your jar file. Take that WAR file and just start that WAR file using Java, and your Jenkins is ready. Okay, so if you go to jenkins.ci, so they have two types of releases. They have long-term release, weekly release. Long-term release is not like 1 year or 2 years, but it's just 12 weeks, quarterly cycle they have. Okay, and weekly release is like every week they release it. Okay, right now the latest release, long-term release is 2.107, and the Jenkins the weekly release is 2.122. Go with LTS, okay, long-term release, because which is much more stable version than your weekly release. And it has, you see Docker, FreeBSD, Gentoo, OpenCE, and all these are uh, different on different OSs you can install. There is a generic version WAR package, okay. So for example, I want to install it on a Ubuntu machine. So they have all the previous versions also. If you want to test, see every the version that they have, the previous versions 2011s. Okay, I mean we probably use one or two below than latest. Okay, so 2.10 or 2.7 or 8, depending on your requirement. So the installation steps are here. So uh, very easy. Okay, so just first you get the repository, add these keys, and run these commands. Okay, this is on the Ubuntu machine. If I want to install it on a Windows machine, there is a MSI package that will get downloaded. So this, you see this MSI package, so this is a zip file. Extract it and then run that. I already downloaded it. So Jenkins 2. There is a Jenkins file, MSI file is there. Just double click that. Okay, next. I already have it, so otherwise it will ask you to install it. Just click on next, next, next. It will get installed. So very easy to install it on Windows. And same thing. If you want to install it on Red Hat Linux or SUSE Linux or CentOS, you just have to execute these steps. Okay. So we'll look at one of the machine. So I'll look at Windows is pretty easy. So you need to ensure Java is installed, JDK is installed, because this runs using JVMs. Okay, so you need to have either Java 8 or Java 7. Uh, uh, so let me show you the installation steps so that you know. First, we need to run. If it's a Linux machine or if it's Ubuntu machine, so let me just run this apt-get update. This is going to update existing packages if it is a Ubuntu machine. If it is a Red Hat machine, yum update, run yum update. Since it is a, how do I know it is a Ubuntu machine or uh, a Red Hat machine? So I can etc issue, it shows Ubuntu. If it is a Red Hat machine, you will see a file called Red Hat -release. That file is not there. Or you can say uname -a will show you the kernel version, or uname -r. So these are some commands that will help you know whether it is a Ubuntu machine or Red Hat machine. So what we are going to do is we will update the existing packages first. Just run apt-get update. It's going to update the existing packages. So you need to have internet connection to do this, or else if you have downloaded these packages offline, so you can apply those packages from local repository. So it depends on when you updated your machine. So if you have updated long back, there are more packages to be installed. So if you have updated recently, then will be having less packages to be installed. So as I told, you need to have a JDK. So this is going to install uh, apt-get install default as JDK. So you need to have this JDK installed. This is going to install JDK 8. this is the JDK installation is the only the time taking process, but the otherwise uh, Jenkins will not take that much time. Only the JDK. The download is finished JDK, so it's actually unpacking and installing it. All right, so JDK is done. Okay, now we are going to do this. You can go to the website for installation steps. Okay, here it's the same thing. Okay, so let me close this. Just simply copy paste. I have these installation steps I'm going to share with you, so no need to worry. You don't need to make a note of it. It's done. Again, we'll run app update, app get update. Okay, so this is the actual installation step. Okay, app get install Jenkins, app get install Jenkins hyphen y. To install this, we had to go through all these the prior steps, which are installing JDK, getting the packages. So I will also show you how to install it on Windows if you are not from Linux background. So then this will help you to install on Windows. So this is my Windows 2016 machine. So I will just download that package on. You don't need to have a Linux machine. Okay, it works the same way as whether it is Linux machine or Windows machine. So we're going to use the interface to configure our Jenkins jobs. Sorry, the font is too small. Uh, since it is a virtual machine, there are some limitations here. We are installing simultaneously on Linux and on Windows. So I'll just go to the Windows. It automatically downloads. Save as. Save it to my desktop. So, do you have any questions so far? Do you understand?
Yes, Praveen.
Yeah, tell me, please.
Yeah, what is the difference between LTS and weekly in Jenkins?
So it's the more features are getting added, the more and more features they are adding. LTS is a long term release which is stable version. It is completely tested and there are no issues, it's fully tested version. But the weekly releases are not fully tested yet. Right now 2.1.22, okay, this is a weekly release. After complete testing, it will be your LTS. Okay, this version can become LTS. Okay, so if you see the change log here, you will know what are the things that they have added or what issues that they have fixed in that particular version. Okay, you see, allow administration monitors. What's new in 2.1.9? Community report issues. Ensure as much as possible that tension is defined. So if you go through this, you will know what changes that they have done in that particular release. Okay, and the version that we have right now, the stable release, which is 2.1073. Okay, you see this. What are the things that are added in that 2.1073? Okay, allow users without overall read access to use who am I, fixed race conditions, and all those things. It's just that the this is the next cycle, next release. The latest release is this. This is a previous release. So in the latest release, they are adding more features that you can see it here. It's like what is the difference between Windows 2012 and 2016, or what is the difference between Windows 7 and Windows 10? Why did they? Because they have seen some issues with Windows 7, maybe performance issues, maybe security related issues, or other aspects. So they have, instead of adding more and more security updates to Windows 7 itself, they have released altogether a new operating system with all fixes. Okay, here instead of there is a minor versions, there is major versions. Whatever you see this after dot 3, dot 4, dot 5, okay, or this 10, 107, 108, 109, those are all minor releases. But in case if it goes from 2 to 3, that is a major release. Okay, if you see this past releases, from 1 to 2 is a major release, right? Okay, 1 to 3 is a 2 to 3 is a major release, but the rest of 7.1 to 7.2 is a minor release. 7.3 like that. So does this, do you think is it 2.1.22 is going to become LTS? Not sure. So this may stay as weekly release only. Okay, this may not become LTS. Okay, maybe 2.125 may become LTS. Okay, so they're just fixing the all the, see, they are continuously working on the product. So whenever there is a major change happens, they release a new version. Okay, not for every change they don't release a version, but major changes they release a version. All right, any other questions? Okay, as you see here, the installation, the download is completed, and I'm going to extract this, extract all, extract, and this is extracted to this folder. You just install it. This is MSI file. You can directly double click it, you can install it. Next, next, install. Okay, the installation is done. So we will see, local host 8080 or the IP address. So it will take some time to get started. Okay, or the IP address. So we'll see how to use it. Okay, tomorrow we will see how to start using it, and we have to set the password. We have to install some plugins before we actually start using it. Okay, so we'll see that tomorrow. So any question up to this point? I hope it is clear. All right, so if no questions, uh, we can conclude today's session. See you tomorrow, same time. Thank you.